Welcome to Not Strong.
This is a podcast for men about real challenges and real growth.
Life can hit hard. What do you do when the things you've always relied upon quit working?
When the way you've always handled things just isn't enough.
When your physical, mental, and spiritual strength are put to the test?
Do you push through, hold on even tighter?
Or have you learned how to surrender? And what does that look like?
We're here to explore the human spirit with you and share what it takes to press forward through life's greatest challenges.
To tap into something bigger than ourselves and live a healthier, happier, more fulfilling life.
Join us on the Not Strong journey.
Welcome to Not Strong. My name is Kurtis Loftus.
And I'm Tim Hamby.
Not Strong, empowering the human spirit. This is a show for men. And Tim, we've gotten to our third episode, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and I think as we share it, we're up to 12 people.
All right, right on. And yeah.
But empowering the human spirit and what that looks like, what it means. This show is for men primarily. Women might want to watch it. Who knows?
Sure,
the better half. My wife has watched it. She's been kind of bored. No, I'm kidding. She liked him. Hopefully Gretchen.
Yeah, she's watched. She's got commentary and feedback. She told me last time. She said, you didn't explain yourself quite accurately on the courtship, and she said, I said, no, the courtship was 3 years, and she said, yes. She said, but 2 years dating and then the engagement.
Okay.
The last year was the engagement. Okay. So just to correct that.
Good. Thank you for the correction. So this episode 3, is going to be tied or related to what is kind of a popular topic, authenticity, or be true to thine own self. Be true. Kind of out there, a terminology that everyone's familiar with, but maybe honesty as well. So I just felt like from a spiritual standpoint, we all face things, and I tend to do it with my thoughts and my managing it with my my creativity or my problem solving skills, and then sometimes I'm dealing with things that relate to physical strength and things we're going through right now with our own health issues, right? But there's always going to be falling back on that spiritual guidance, that relationship you have with the higher power, with God.
Sure.
And so we want to go there as much as possible in all of these discussions. Before we even get into authenticity, the topic for today, how's your week?
My week's been interesting, been pretty good. I actually went surfing for the first time in 15 months. I waited until the water warmed up, got my wind back, my strength back, and there was waiting on waves. They came. Wasn't able to get out.
What day was it?
What was that? Sunday. This was Sunday. So
that was a good surf that day. I was in a parade.
Yeah.
We won't talk about it. It was good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was good. It was better Saturday. I couldn't get out Saturday, but did get out Sunday. And so been waiting, for a while to get back out there just to see, is it like riding a bike?
Not really.
Yeah, not really. And then I'm still dealing with issues from, my chemotherapy treatment last year, which is neuropathy in my feet. A lot of times it feels like I'm on pins and needles.
Ooh, I bet. Yeah.
And so anyway.
Is that kind of like when you go cold water surfing, like it's freezing cold and your feet kind of get numb on you?
Yeah, it's similar to that. And it comes with some pain, and so anyway, I went out there, and the good news is that I got up on my first try and rode down the wave and didn't fall. But
what board are you riding?
I ride a 6'1".
That's a short board, dude.
Yeah, it's a short board.
There's a lot of men that are our age that jump into the longboard much quicker.
When I was out at your the surfing the world record attempt, and Miss Kaufman was out there on the beach, and we were chatting, and we talked about longboard, shortboard. He asked me if what I was riding, and I told him the 6 foot, and he made a remark. He said, "Don't ever stop." And I said, what do you mean? And he said, yeah. He goes, once you quit and you get on a longboard, he said you're not going to go back to it. He said it just gets hard.
Well, that and what I ended up doing, it was like years and years ago. I jumped onto a longboard and started riding it during the summer, like so many of my friends. and this has got to be 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I got comfortable on that board.
Yeah.
And then once you're comfortable and you shift back to a short board, you're like, oh, this is much more work. Oh, I'm not catching as many waves.
I did the same thing in the past.
I was like, darn it, I'm stubborn. I am not going to ride a longboard. I'll ruin my surfing.
I did the exact same thing, and I set the longboard aside, and I was like, I'm not going to touch it because, it does make it more challenging when you go back to the shore. But, the other day, I got to be honest, after that session, which was pretty miserable, I considered, it may be time for me to switch to a mid-length or longboard or something. I was even thinking like soft top, just because jumping up on my board, doing pop-ups and stuff, it kind of hurt my feet a little bit. And I wasn't having a successful day. But I think what I'm going to do, and my stubborn self as well, I'm going to give myself a few more sessions. I'm going to see, what it's like on bigger waves, which is what I like to surf anyway, where, there's more surface area.
So
on
your
the face.
pop-up speed's fine. You can get up.
Yeah, but I was scraping my toes. And
I rode today. I went surfing today. So we did a pre-show conversation. So we both learned, each of us was surfing recently. I did all right. I went down to Puerto Rico in January, and that was the last time.
Oh, yeah.
I've been stuck just working, and no real opportunities until this morning, and surf for an hour. But pop-up time is slower. Breathing stinks. I mean, because I have no testosterone. And I ended up catching some waves. They were small. It is a little bit like riding a bike, where by the end of the session, I was more comfortable and feeling my groove a little. But boy, dude, I ride a 6 foot.
Well, good for you, because as my session went on, and my feet were getting kind of worse each time. And I was like, this actually kind of hurts, and which made it harder. But we'll see. I think that I think I'll be able to.
You will,
to get
Dave.
that.
You will, yeah. And we need to get out in the ocean together.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Absolutely. I need, actually, I was by myself. I could use a friend to encourage me, and
I'll do it.
Whatnot.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, and then the other interesting thing that happened in my week is I went to the doctor, cardiologist, and this is a fella who, when I got diagnosed with cancer last year, I originally started having high blood pressure. That's kind of how people discovered it, and it was absurdly high. And they kept checking my heart, and they tried to give me medication, and it wouldn't really bring the blood pressure down. And the cardiologist that I was seeing, he just kept trying to medicate me more. So I switched, and I went to a new guy. And immediately, upon getting there, and I gave my history, he said, we need to go get your kidneys checked out. And and then he called me on a Sunday evening, and he said, hey, you're nearing 3.9 kidney failure, stage 4 kidney failure. He said, you need to get to the ER tonight. And so I went, and so, and then I got diagnosed and went through the year. So then this year I went back for an annual, and it's the first time you see me. And, he said he couldn't believe it. While he was sitting there asking me questions, he's looking at his computer and kind of looking my year over, and his eyes are getting big, and he's just shaking his head, and he just looks at me, and he said, stage 4 metastatic cancer. He goes, and your kidney failure, you were in bad shape. Right. And you could just see it all over his face. It's like he didn't expect for me to be sitting in front of him. Right. And that's the same thing that I've seen with other doctors that I've run into, and with the oncologist. Every time I go, they're just always, you're really blessed. And so anyway, those were two things that happened to me, and it did really remind me, and because you can forget so quickly how lucky you are. Not lucky, how blessed. And
you are in a spiritual space. Like, this is what we're going to get to. If you can't settle yourself, your heart, your head, your spirit, and relax into what God has for you, then you'll be a basket case, or you'll be not. We're doing something together that most people wouldn't think about doing. Really. Yeah, no. You think about it, it's like, hey, let's talk about stuff, including, what is right in front of us that's really a challenge. Being able to share ideas that are related to things men I know for a fact struggle with, because I've sat in rooms now for 11 years in a recovery program, listening to men discuss pretty much everything we'll touch on through this year, when it comes to spiritual strength. Can you be a fully open, honest version of Tim or Kurtis in front of people? And what does that mean? Because it's darn scary for a lot of people. So when I jumped into the program 11 years ago, I had no expectation some of this was going to get addressed. By the way, I thought I was just going, hey, I've got a drinking problem and I need help. That's really what the whole purpose of joining in and doing recovery meant to me at that time. I had no idea they were going to go, oh, we have these steps. And these are the steps. And by the way, there's this other thing that's called traditions, and we have 12 of those. And then we're going to teach you, or at least share with you, principles. Principles, Tim. Like, here they are. I brought them with me. And they start with honesty.
Okay.
Yep. So you basically have honesty. That's your principle number one. Hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, love, discipline, perseverance, awareness, and service. So, again, had no idea 11 years ago, and I'm 52 at the time. I wonder how well I do these things. And I would like to believe I do them pretty well, but turns out I struggle. I struggle with honesty because as a man, I did not like the idea of vulnerability. Can you step outside of yourself, or do you have problems in places where your authentic self doesn't match up to what's going on around you? I guess that's the question.
Well, are you saying that you discovered or felt that you were being dishonest in some ways?
I would drink over problems to me that I felt I had lost either control over, I couldn't manage anymore, didn't fit who I was, and because I maybe decided at the end of the day it's too much work, too much trouble, I just would rather numb myself. And when you get into like the authentic self, which was fun to kind of study that, these are the things they say. The authentic self, has core qualities. You read them out, because I'm doing a heck of a lot of talking. And these are
on honesty and integrity, being honest with oneself, so externally, or with oneself internally, and others externally, acting in accordance with one's values.
So values are important. So that honesty and integrity is great, but are we really fully honest? And it's almost like I give up a little bit. I have slack there when it comes to this workplace, when it comes to, some of my social environments, because I'm a prideful man. I've got ego, and I want things to go a certain way. So sometimes that honest self, which I think is the core of it, like you would almost talk about it like it's a paradox. This is where it gets really interesting. It's a struggle because you are you, Tim. I am me. And we want to go ahead and live ourselves or live our life in that honest way. But it butts up against other things. Don't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you could say so.
Yeah, I would have to say so. If we talked about, I have so many friends that want to go surfing, and they talk about how much they love surfing. But then their significant other will say like, dude, you surf all the time, this is like your 5th session this week or something like that.
Yeah.
And it starts to bother the other person. Let's say it's the wife. Now, this doesn't happen to me, and it sounded like it didn't happen to you in your surfing expeditions.
Yeah.
Margaret was always, go surf, go surf.
Yeah, I had that support.
I loved it. I was grateful.
Yeah.
And that's me. Now, if someone said to you, no, you're not doing this, this, and this, doesn't that mean compromise is should be
required?
It's required.
Yeah.
But, and maybe my surf story was a bad example of integrity because it's not really integrity. That's maybe not a core value is to surf all the time. But there are people that would tell you the reason I'm not engaged or in a relationship is because I will have this inability to have all my freedoms. Right?
Yeah, I understand that.
So here we go. What's your biggest lie? Do you remember the biggest moment where you were like, oh my God, I have caught myself and what do I do with this thing that's big enough? And you said, I'm going against the grain. This isn't really what I think is best. And you went another direction. You have a story that's a little different.
Yeah. So there was, a time that comes to mind when what I consider my authentic self, principles I live by, my natural self, got me probably into trouble a bit. And that was when we closed the business after 15 years in business, the real estate marketing firm.
You had a really
very successful,
exceptionally, just from a regional standpoint, everyone knew you, and you were doing the best work anywhere.
Yeah, so we had some good people.
Yeah, your real estate marketing firm was top notch.
And and then we hit that historic downturn, and everything just stopped. We were way at a peak, and 27 employees and 10,000 square feet of office space. So, and that came to like a screeching halt, and so we had to start putting our own money into it. And it was expensive, a lot of people, a lot of salaries and all this other stuff. And we were putting about 30 grand a month, every month.
Losing it.
Losing.
Basically.
Yeah, gone.
Yeah,
just one after another.
Yeah.
And my wife, Gretchen, she's probably a little more savvy on it than me. She recognized that we're going to have to stop. We got to stop.
Yeah.
We're using our personal savings in this, and it's going so quick. We're spending this much, a month, and but my natural self, I'm diehard optimist, and I just believe that I can get through anything, anytime, and I didn't believe that a downturn could last for much longer than a year.
Right.
This one, obviously went on. It got into the broader economy. It was historic.
Right.
What happened. And I probably should have acted on things sooner than I did. And instead, I literally squandered everything that we had. And I kept telling her, it's going to be okay. Yeah. It's going to be okay. We're going to come back from it. And
Tim, I did the same thing, but a little differently, which is amazing. We get to have these conversations. My business, marketing, advertising, built more around creative services, some branding, identity work, a lot of project work. Had 4 or 5 clients that were strong for about 5 years. We were in the $1.2 million range with about 8 people working with us, something like that. But mostly services, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of media buying, not some of that. Some of that.
Yeah.
So anyways, when things started to go rough, about the same time, not because of real estate, but just by nature of just chance.
It spread to the economy.
Well, but it wasn't. It was, I lost an account called Surf Expo right about the same time. 2 other large accounts went away. Different reasons, not because we were under one, probably a performance related thing. So my point was, I, about the same time, pridefully, with a ton of just stubbornness, said, I'm going to keep people, I'm going to keep going, even with all of this stuff absent, no income, not the income. And I, unfortunately, kept myself busy doing a lot of busy work, but not real large money work. So I was doing nonprofit stuff. I'm trying to feed my soul. That's what I called it. But it was pride for me and fear. I didn't want to admit to the world that I was going to be failing in an endeavor, even though some of it wasn't my fault. Even though I had some optimism, it will get better. The final thing.
And I'm sure there was a degree in that in mine as well as I'm not going to let this big thing sink.
Right.
But it was also driven by, people, employees who were like family.
Oh, all of it.
Who, felt the responsibility to take care of.
All of it.
And again, it was my natural self, my natural sense of optimism and belief that I could correct it.
Yours didn't serve you, is the point.
Yes, yeah.
At the end of all that, mine got flipped. Like if I would have said, I'm very optimistic, because I generally am, but we both were, unfortunately, you could say, not reckless, but just not listening. We weren't wide open. Maybe the right thing is just let's shut this thing down now, or let's knock it back to 4 employees and go back.
I listened and I analyzed, but I decided something different, and Gretchen, bless her, was willing to go with me. But I'll tell you, after that thing was over, and we had nothing, we had to start over.
Right.
I really felt. I felt terrible that it was me who led this, and I felt like she.
But Tim, I'm going to tell you again, 10 years, 11 years that I've been in a program that is sometimes based. The reason the disease gets a hold of a person, alcoholism kind of really settles in, is I classify it as soul sick. What happens is I think I'm just designed in a way where I don't go 100%. I go 110. I go 120. If I'm doing something, I'm going to just do it like all the way.
You consider yourself an addictive personality?
I've said it. I've said it. And if I said that's a core quality, oddly enough, it works against me.
But it serves you well.
But it serves me well, and that's what I've learned.
That's the paradox.
Yeah, the paradox in this discovery of your authentic self has to include what would be, I won't call them character defects, but there are some things that we are allowed to have or experience in life that can be really unfortunate because we think we're living out our authentic self, and then we go ahead and take that path, and all of a sudden you're going, what? What? And for me, unfortunately, I would self-medicate. And then over time, I really didn't talk to people. Then I got more isolated, or at least more into this position that I would tell myself, no one understands my struggles. No one understands how hard this is. And I would make up all these excuses. And then I'd have friends that were also struggling, and this is before the program. And there were just a lot of people self-medicating out there in the world.
It's interesting that you say that, and I would imagine, I don't know because I haven't been in a program, but I've told you that I've had issues with alcohol in the past when I was younger, and I know that a lot of people. They, get into alcoholism or other addictions. They medicate because of, past pain, trauma. They have a chip on their shoulder for one reason or another.
But there is a chemical issue with it.
And chemical issues as well.
Without a doubt.
But I would say that, one of the reasons that, or the primary reason that I abused alcohol when I was younger, and I think that I suspect that there's a lot of people like me that get started this way as well, was for social reasons. because I was inherently shy,
Yep.
and still am.
Yep.
And it's genetic. My mom's the same way. My brother, my daughter. There's in social situations. I always want to have some drinks to loosen up.
Yeah, it's a very
and that eventually, got.
We laugh about it. Yeah, we laugh about it at times, and it's interesting to be in. I go regular. I mean, I attend a meeting almost every day, and I know everyone in the program that's in this particular meeting, and we've grown to be really close friends.
Do you hear from people like that came through that way versus
what we laugh about, and again, there is humor in this recovery. What you end up laughing about is the person that would be like my wife, maybe you, where you have the drinks and let's say the night's going on and it's 10 and there's a half a glass of beer still left and you bolt. We're sitting there going, what the heck is that dude doing leaving a half a glass of beer?
Yeah.
Seriously, we're all like, if we see stuff like that happen in our head, we know this guy's got it together. He's good. Me, no. No. And I'm the guy that would go prepare for a night out and then make sure before I even headed out that I felt at least a little better than just my normal self arriving at a party and then having a drink. I would never approach a party or a social gathering without being somewhat medicated. Not being stupid, but still. And I would use the excuse, I'm going to take the edge off, or I'm going to do this or that. And point is, it got worse instead of better. And what you do learn is there are people like me just don't need to have a drink because it just sets everything into motion. It's a chemical. There'll be a chemical reaction.
Not even one, not even half.
Nope. Can't even do it. And I don't even do the fake beer stuff. I don't even want to get closer. Really? Yeah, you don't even want to.
I have a question because I've often wondered this, and I've got multiple friends who've been through the program, but I've never asked the question: does it offend you or is it make it difficult for you if we go out, have dinner or whatever, and I'm having a beer?
No,
you're not.
Yeah, I personally, and everyone has their own story on that. A lot of different kind of approaches to how someone...
Is that considered rude? Or
No. In fact, from a sobriety standpoint, I'm again grateful for my wife who doesn't act like me, doesn't drink like I used to drink. I'm grateful for the people that I come across now that actually just say when they're at a bar or a restaurant or at a party, and I go to the bartender and he serves me up a Diet Coke or spritzer, whatever, and then I walk to a table and there's another person drinking a spritzer or a Diet Coke. I totally now understand that just because I felt like everyone drank and everyone partied and everyone had these kind of social things, it was not that. It wasn't that way at all. And I accept now the fact that I can't, you can, and that's cool. It's like, it doesn't bother me at all. And I tell people, honestly, if they go, Kurtis, you're not drinking, do you? And sometimes I say to them straight up, I can't drink. It doesn't, I do not do well with drinking. And I think that's just like any other illness, any other kind of challenge, any other problem. The stigma's starting to kind of fall away, I believe. You're hearing way too many stories now about people that struggle. And it's a lot of times emotional. They're dealing with past issues.
Younger people are starting to turn it away because now they're connecting it with cancer.
Yeah, they know it's also, get this, they know that. And that's what I love about the young generation. They know it's false. It's a false presentation of who you are.
Yeah,
they know that there's so many things attached to it that aren't honest and authentic that when they meet people that are like hey, and doing the whole party thing and drinking and making a pitch. Kids know that.
No, I agree. The younger generation is definitely
dialed
more
in,
honest and more authentic. They value that.
They are paying attention to it. And it's you and I and these older folks that are trying to learn, oh my gosh, we not misbehave, but we have gotten to a place in society, and I think it's communication and it's the way the world has gotten, which is the best part about all of the tools we have now, from information and collecting information and learning. I mean, when I did my research today, just to learn a little bit about authenticity, most of the stuff that was coming to me was through an AI generator. So as I was, so it's just grabbing everything from everywhere and dropping it down. And it's all good content. I know some of us are worried about what we're getting, but it's relevant. It's good stuff. And I learned also while I was doing my research, which you just brought up with medicine. And, you learn about things that aren't healthy for you, good for you, because it's going to ruin your body, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But men don't like to address their health.
Yeah.
And we spoke about that before the show started.
Yeah, I know. I was definitely a guy who I never went to the doctor ever. I didn't, I barely made it to the annuals, and the doctor would have to chase me down. Hey, you need to come in for an annual.
And I got the pictures of you from early Tim days with, Gretchen and surfing, and you're a stud. Nothing's, no, seriously. You're an outdoorsman, keeps good, you're in great shape. You love traveling, hiking, surfing, all those things. And you would have never thought this thing would have.
I did. Yeah, it caught me out of the blue, out of left field.
Yeah. And you and I are sitting there. I'm the same way.
You're the exact same way.
The exact same way.
More so.
Well, I knew because of my grandfather that there was a chance. It was hereditary.
So yes, right, because you had it in your family.
Had it in the family, and I let it slip for 2 years. And during the 2 years, I was out stand-up paddling. I was trying to set a record stand-up paddling. My crazy head. I mean, that's back to my addictive personality.
Yeah. What was it, 87 miles?
The route was 70-ish. 76 maybe. Right. And it was around the island, and it was impossible. And I still may do it one day, but it's a very, very hard journey because you have to deal with inlets and tides and winds, and you're going upwind, downwind.
I'll do what I did in Marathon Surfer, and I'll accompany you for 1 mile.
That's what everyone says. But it was one of those where I'm doing all this great physical stuff, but I hadn't been back to the doctor. And then by the time I get back to the doctor, they're like, well, your PSA looks like it's way off the chart.
Right.
And, that's when I knew my grandfather's disease, the prostate had caught up with me.
And they told me, they tested for genetic, and they said, nope, yours is from an external source somewhere. Chemical exposure could
heard
be
that.
water.
I've heard that.
Could be food or, who knows what.
But you and I stubbornly, or just thinking it's not necessary, that's, again, a core, let's call it authentic part of who we are.
Yeah.
I won't call it bad. I don't. I think it's back to, it makes us who we are. Right? Right? And when you begin to accept who you are, which is what I've been learning over time. I mean, I don't care to change any of my, I want to be a more loving, open, honest human being, right? But when it comes to some of my stubbornness, or when it comes to some of my impatience, I get better at it, but it's still going to be there. I know it will be, because the impatience sometimes works really to my benefit.
Yeah.
Solving a problem, not waiting on some 3 other people to solve the problem for you.
Yeah.
I do. I'm just going to jump right in and get it done.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Right?
No, I agree. Yeah.
Right. So that's that I believe is the authentic Kurtis, but I get in trouble with it. The thing I don't do is drink over it anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's that, and that's the beauty of learning about yourself and in taking the time to explore these things. And I do every morning pray about these things. I meditate on my life and my relationship with my wife, and I do everything every morning much differently than I used to before the program. Yeah, my whole day is much different. Probably closer to what your day is like.
Your
day's probably always been that way.
Mine, no, I wouldn't say that. In mine actually changed with the diagnosis. I've prayed a lot more in the past year than I ever have, even because my idea of prayer in the past, it wasn't about myself. It was praying for other people. That's all I ever did. And there was something inside of me that it was like, the things that I may have wanted or whatever, I'm not going to ask God for these things,
right.
Right. But I would ask for other, I would pray for other people. This past year, that changed a little bit, and I asked, for myself, but I also, did my regular prayers, but I got a lot more consistent with it.
Yeah.
And because my prayers, when the few times when I have prayed, and back when the business went down, that was one of those times. He's always answered.
Yeah. I think for the best kind of results, physical, emotional, spiritual well-being, I need to be accepting, right? It really, end of the day, you have to accept as much as you can what is today, what's in front of you, what is the things that are good, the things that are difficult, right? And be as composed and as, again, open to them as possible. Because if you're stressing and running or trying to, muscle it and do things against what would be the flow of that energy, you're probably putting yourself in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so that's some of the stuff when it comes to authentic self. I believe there's some room in there for us to just say, okay, self, this isn't all me. Hey, God, this is I'm in a curious place. I'm in that space of mystery. I do not know what's going to happen, but I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's it. Because I would have told you the guy 15 years ago with some of the challenges, the things we're talking about, much different behavior, Tim. And I would have justified it, because I would have said, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to address it. Stubbornly. And probably with a little bit of immaturity. So I love having a little bit more wisdom. There's a lot of things that come with these things that are going on right now in our lives that can make us even better, stronger.
Oh, definitely. Right. Yeah.
But we're getting.
I feel like I grew a lot in this past year for sure.
Growing out of pain and struggle is hard for some people to accept.
Yeah. No, that's where all the growth occurs, when you're suffering.
Yeah.
When you get comfortable, that's when you fall back.
Right. Well, man, we hit some good points. And Tim, keep learning, keep believing, because I know that your results are going to be great, and we're going to keep doing this thing. We have a whole season of podcasts. I'm Kurtis Loftus.
And I'm Tim Hamby.
And this is Not Strong. We're over here. Empowering the human spirit. Join us again. We'll have a episode 4 loaded up soon. Tim's taking a break for a little bit, but we're gonna get all 3 loaded up, and hopefully we get some folks watching and sharing and give us some feedback. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.